Good afternoon, and we are here again. We will start another session. I hope you won't fed up with me because I will be on the stage all the time. And we will be discussing in this session the physical demand of modern football. We have valuable speakers, Chris Marks from UEFA and Professor Dr. Türker Bıyıklı from Marmara University, and Ulian Goga is one of our special guests, and we will be talking about the physical issues. You know, there's a four-corner model in player assessment, but physical demands of football is changing, and we need to talk about it separately. That's why we added this topic to the panel program. We made a little change because of the schedule, Mr. Bıyıklı. Normally we will do this session tomorrow, but now we will be talking about these issues right now. Chris, I'm going to start with UEFA. We are going down from the top. I will start with the match schedule because there's a big pressure on the players. They constantly play the games, UEFA League, Champions League, and the local division, the local league games, etc. And there is a physical impact of this on the player. What is necessary to find a solution? Is it possible to change the league structure or match schedules? Not possible, but we need to do something on the player side. How can we do it? Is there any way to adapt the players physically to this busy schedule?
Okay, yeah, the microphone is working. I'll just open by saying thank you to Saeed, the people at Kola, for the invitation. I'm delighted to be with you all in Azerbaijan today. And that gives me a little bit of time to think of an answer. It's a very, very simple question, but actually it's not simple at all. You're absolutely correct. Fixture scheduling is growing. There are more games than ever in European competition. As we're all aware, in the next week, the World Cup starts. And there are 40 more games in this year's World Cup. And the scheduling of fixtures and the number of fixtures is something that certainly in England, the players and the players' representatives, their agents, have been making a lot of noise about. What they're not talking about, though, is the secondary factor, which is actually within the games themselves, and something that we have seen over the past 15 years with the evidence that we've collected from a variety of systems that shows that the physical demands of the game themselves are increasing almost exponentially, year on year on year. Now, we've got a lot of evidence of that from England, but an increasing amount of evidence from other parts of the world as well. So, it's quite simple at the end of the day. Every piece of activity that the players undertake is costing. It's costing energy. And in order to be ready for whatever comes next, the energy needs to be replaced. And we're probably just about on the cusp of being able to manage this situation, this delicate balance between taking away and the players expending ever-increasing amounts of energy within the game itself, and having the right time and the space for them to recuperate fully and to go into the next game at no greater risk of injury and able to perform to 100%. Now the problem with that is that's a very general statement. I'm talking about all footballs, all positions, all ages here. And quite clearly it's not that simple. because every footballer is different. Every footballer plays the game in different ways, and the game profile for every footballer is thus different, and they will use different amounts of energy. And they also recover at different rates. So what we're starting to see now, and we've seen an awful lot of this in England this season, is towards the end of the season, towards the end of a very long season, those players who genetically, quite naturally, don't possess the same qualities of recovery are the ones that begin to fall. And we've seen an unprecedented number of injuries in the top 2 levels of football in England in the last half of this year. So that's the situation. Is there a solution? Well, fixture scheduling is way above my pay grade. It's nothing that any sports scientist or fitness coach can have anything to do. We have a lot of clubs in England which do try to practice some form of player rotation in games. But again, the reality is, as we all know only too well, most coaches are only 3 games away from the sack. So the concept of player rotation is something that doesn't sit very comfortably with an awful lot of coaches, because they'll always want what they see as their best team, their strongest team, out on the field. And that goes right to the very top level in England, certainly. Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool. They'll rotate in the minor domestic cups in the early rounds. But when it gets to the games that mean things, that contribute towards winning championships, that contribute towards progression in Europe, and let's be honest, there's people sat in this room who have financial vested interests in this. It contributes towards the income and the ongoing revenue for the club itself. We're faced with a very, very difficult situation. We have invested huge amounts of money in sports science in Premier League clubs, for sure. Tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds on cryotherapy and hyperbaric chambers and things like that. We're looking for what is commonly referred to as these marginal gains. And I don't really want to go into any great detail about that just at this point in time, because again, the reality of this, and hopefully we'll come back to this at a later point in this session, the reality is these marginal gains are 1%. They're the small things that people are looking for. They're looking at nutritional supplements before they get core nutrition correct. They're looking at investing hundreds of thousands of pounds in recovery, but they don't invest in the core components, which is sleep, good central nutrition, hydration, and things like that. And this is happening at the highest level in England. And so I think there's still an awful lot that can be done. But it's in those areas, if you like, the big rocks, the big things, the core components that we need to work on and get right before we start wasting owners' money on the small things that might just have that 1% or whatever.
Thank you. And address my second question to Prof. Dr. Türker Bıyıklı. It is exactly seen that it's not possible to put an end that the numbers of the games, it will be continuous and they need to play many games in a season. As a result, we need to find a solution for training plannings of the players and the teams. What is your opinion about this issue? What kind of training and recovery models do we need to keep the players out of injury and to make them prepared to the continuous games?
Okay, first of all, thank you for your method and for the organization team, and they are very struggle for the organization. And regarding the question, I need to say something about recovery, but the end. Okay. So, as you said, and the coach said that the modern football has changed dramatically, right? So maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, we can plan around the team, plan training plan about the team, around the team, but now currently today, we planned around the individual. So in the increase in the match intensity and density and high speed running and demands, so in meanings that traditional and one size fit all periodization models and becoming less effectively, right? Every training program should be individual, because every individual has different metabolic and structure, and different nervous system, different and contractile component, something like that. I don't want to take your time in technical things, and therefore the future is not only periodization, it is individualized micro-periodization. So we need to monitor not only external feedback, but also internal responses, GPS data, and wellness structure, and sleep quality, and gene types, and strength and description, so psychological readiness. Everything is considered together. However, no single professional can be managed for all this process. This is a teamwork, right? Strength and conditioning coach, sports scientist, physiotherapist, and a strength and conditioning coach and physiotherapist and osteopath. But also, I am a technical coach. We have to, okay, every club has these specialists, but we need the same language each other, right? So, football is a teamwork, okay, but elite performance also and teamwork, right? Behind the scenes. That's it.
Okay. And I will address my next question to Mr. Goga. The number of the games are increasing day by day, but it looks like a problem for top clubs competing in UEFA organizations. But the game is changing and it is more competitive, and the demands from the players are getting higher and higher. We need top players, strong players, and in all leagues, for example in Turkey, probably also in Azerbaycan league, there are more tacklings and more falls, and there's a big demand for strength in all teams. What can you say? What is the biggest challenge you faced when introducing this high intensity demands of modern football, and how do you train your players to be ready for this level of the game?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. Happy to be here among you guys. As far as the question, it is a matter of many different components. When you come and join a new team at the beginning of the season, you want to do, without trying to use the words of the previous speakers, an internal scouting of what you really have. I believe, just like the previous speaker spoke about, there's a need for individual training in football, modern day football, because not just the game, but the position itself demands you different physical. It has different physical demands. Therefore, we need to know what we have. So there's this thing that we do when we join a club. In this case, I'm talking about me and the coaching staff that I was part of this year. We see the players, we see their culture, we see the training culture, we see everything. And the biggest thing is to see how far we can push them. And that starts chronologically in the preseason. Now we see preseasons getting shorter and shorter because most players, they usually come fit in the preseason. So there's no need to have this excessive amount of time to prepare the players for the game. But not every player is the same, as you said before, and not every league is the same. So therefore, you might have to adapt your training to the league that you're part of. Currently, in Azerbaijan, and I'm speaking personally, I find there's a balance between players coming fit to the preseason and some players not showing up so fit. And what does fitness really mean to most players is a bit different. You're going to get a different answer from different players. If you ask some of the players, are you fit or not, they're going to tell you they went to the gym and they lifted weights. But that's not just what physical fitness is. Basically, as we said, the biggest demand we're going to have is running on the pitch and doing it so by being ready for the next game to do the same and to perform the same way we performed in the previous game. So the biggest challenge really was to create a common language so we all speak the same language and we all train the same way. So there was a methodology of training being introduced. Periodization is the biggest thing that takes a lot of time for us coaches, I think. Given the schedule and the demands that every game has, which is playing the Premier League in Azerbaijan is pretty high, I would say. You know, the players have to perform. They have to be ready to perform every game. That means injury free, and they have to feel 100%. So to ensure that, we followed a couple of strategies by monitoring their fatigue, for example, monitoring their internal and external loads. But all this done in a way that we all share this information between the staff, so nobody is lost in communication, and also between the players, because we also have to make demands for the players what we require from them. Sometimes players they want to perform more. Sometimes they want to do more than when they're asked to. And there's times where you have to tell them, okay, you did enough for today. Maybe tomorrow we have to get an extra 1 kilometer or whatever it is. The question in mind. But the whole point is getting everyone in the same methodology, so that when we implement it, we hopefully write the results that we're looking for.
Thank you. And yes, you can. Yeah.
Sorry, if I can just add one more factor into this equation, because I'm conscious of the conversations that took place earlier regarding head coaches and the insecurity of the role of a coach, which is very real. But with the environment that we have at the moment, one of the key risk factors that exist increasingly in football is what we would call transition. So that's going from one state or stage or system to another. Now that could be for a young player transitioning up into an older age group. It could be for a player going from a club environment to a national team environment, different again. Or it could be simply within a club when there's a change of head coach, and increasingly we see that. So Tottenham Hotspur, Nottingham Forest this season have had 4 head coaches. That's 4 different playing philosophies, 4 different training philosophies, 4 different ways of working and moving, and 4 different systems that these players are having to adapt to. Now the problem you've got is when a new head coach comes in, you don't get time to adapt. It usually isn't a phased introduction because the head coach wants to make a statement, so they want to work hard with the players and introduce their way of working, so if anything, the volume of work will increase. And this is work that's new to these players. And that's a huge red flag. Now, as well as this, and those of you who worked in the coaching side and the football side will have seen this, quite often when a new head coach comes in, the first observation is, these players are not fit. Well, they're not. they're not fit for that coach's way of working. And what happens is the players experience a huge amount more cognitive and physiological stress. So for the same amount of running around and work on the football field, these players do look like they're shattered. Because there's a whole series of new events going on. But the head coach has thought they're not fit. So he's prescribing more work of the sort that he or she is bringing into the club. So raising a second red flag, if you like. It's a real challenge and a really dangerous situation, because in the ideal world, the new head coach's philosophies would be gradually introduced and thus minimising the risk of injury, and the head coach would understand the additional stress that's imposed that doesn't reflect a lack of fitness, but just the need for time to transition to this new way of thinking and new way of working.
Türker, there's a saying that the best training is recovery. How do you position the strength training within a congested match schedule? Because how do you strike that delicate balance between keeping a player away from injury and being their explosive power on the match day? It's not that easy to arrange everything.
It's a good question, but every time I'm facing this question, and I think we have to re-identify the phenomena, right? What is recovery? What is strengthening? So I strongly disagree with the idea that recovery and strengthening are different concepts, right? So well-designed strength training is most powerful injury prevention and recovery tools we have. Because what kind of strength? You mean resistance? Jumping is a strength. Stabilization endurance, and maximum strength, proprioception, richness, everything is about regarding strength. So the question is about strength training should be like when, how much, for whom, right? So in modern football, strength training must become highly targeted, individualized. That's what I say. For a player needs to maximum strength, maybe, because maintain his or he or she and protect their maximum and force production. For another, needs to have eccentric strength for the wing player, and too much sprint and acceleration and deceleration. Maybe he needs or she needs eccentric strength. For another, I don't know, he had a history of patellar tendinopathy history, so he needs to tendon and loading and eccentric, maybe concentric, maybe isometric and load. I don't know. Everyone is difference needed. So that's why communication is critical. The all stuff, right? This is the teamwork. I need to say about recovery. Recovery is not just about ice pack, not just about the massage, and not just about the sleeping. Everyone, we need everything to integrate approach. So, but the most important thing is energy consumption. If you not proper energy consumption, the ice pad and massage, it doesn't work, right? Because there is not your inside. So recovery is not just recovery, your strength components, it's regarding your recovery. Your proprioception control regarding your recovery, right? Core strength, core stabilization, core power, different things. And balance strength, balance stabilization, balance power, different things. That's why we need to re-identify the phenomenon, right?
There are many different components of athletic performance. Thanks to the data analytics and GPS technologies, we have ability to see, to track every single step of the players.
Yeah.
And I will address my next question to Chris Barnes. We have some abilities to observe the recent situation, but sometimes it can cause a data obesity. And it's not that easy to make a decision by using all data, all different components, etc. Can you give us, according to the UEFA, which are the most important KPIs for this issue? For example, for in a club, which components should be used by giving a decision on the player, on the injury, on the scouting? The KPIs are, all of us are looking for it, just 3 points, and then it's easy to make a decision.
Okay, this isn't the UEFA official position, definitely. As you can probably gather looking at me, I've been around for a while and worked in the game for some years. And there was a time when I thought I was being clever, trying to be clever. And it took me a long while to realise that actually the best way of being clever is to be straight and simplistic and ensure if you're having a conversation with somebody that we're absolutely on the same page. So now for me, okay, you're absolutely right, Erden. Everybody is spending fortunes on tracking technologies that give us a huge amount of data. When it comes to training, I'm interested in two numbers. How much work have they done, the volume, and how hard have they worked, the intensity. And coaches understand that, and players understand that. And so it's a bridge to a conversation that isn't in any way threatening. But the key to all of this, and within all of this data, for me, is we have to quantify what normal looks like, what expected looks like. And that could be for match day -1, the day before a game, match day -2, the day before a game. It could be for certain training drills. What does a normal response look like for our players? And do you know, most of the time, when we look at the information that we collect, it actually falls within what we'd expect to be normal. Because coaches are good. And when they plan a session, it normally goes as they had planned. And so then, there's no conversation to be had with the coach, because everything's okay. So it's thumbs up, everything's okay. Where the data comes into its own is when we identify something that falls outside of what we would expect. Now, if that's for 1 or 2 players, that'll precipitate a conversation with the players. If it's for 5 or 6 players, it could be a conversation with a coach or the coaching team. But we need this objective approach in order that we're actually doing due diligence and doing our own job and the job that we're being paid to do as fitness coaches or scientists. And it's not difficult to put these systems into place, for sure. In terms of the actual KPIs,